Hi, Commander Runningcloud here with my show, which has an audience of the good ETs, the Eternals, and the other people fighting for America, time travelers, I think. Okay, I cannot find my crown. I looked everywhere, I cannot find it. And that's very disturbing to me. I also want you to look at my face. It's getting worse because yesterday I actually had a conversation with somebody outside, and when I got inside, my face started burning. So while I was outside, I was attacked again. Okay, so I was attacked again, and the bioweapons were inflicted on me. Now I do not know where my crown is, so maybe it's time for the end of that. But it's very strange for me to just lose it completely. I looked in the places where I'd usually find it. I don't see it there. So I guess my era of wearing that cosplay crown is come to an end unless I can find it. I'm just worried now that somebody got into my room, maybe when I went to the garbage can, maybe when I was in the bathroom and the door was blocked but still open. I don't know. I just know that I spent a lot of the night with brand new pain in my face because I actually stayed outside. You know, the woman who was talking to me, she was telling me that she had lived here 20 some years ago. And I know she's on the clock. They only get 6 minutes to deliver things per address. But she stayed there and told the story 3 or 4 times. So, of course, now that I realized that I got shot again in my face, can you see it? See, I got shot again, and it's hurting a little bit on this side too. I realized that maybe she was keeping me outside so that they could shoot at me. Because that other horrible looking man, well, I saw him talking to Marcus Smith, so they know each other. But he went down the stairs, so he was in this area while I was talking to that woman. But I can only talk to one person at a time. It's really hard for me to talk to more than one person at a time uh, because, I think I have autism, maybe socially acquired autism. So, in terms of the bioweapons, I don't know. If I go outside, it seems that I get reattacked. And I think that's how. The other possibility could be that whatever the organism that they've infected with me, whatever the bioweapon is, it could be cyclical. It could reach maturity and even leave my body interdimensionally, and then a new crop starts. I've considered that as a possible theory about things. Well, interesting, interesting. A lot of things are going on. Today I felt incredible depression. My mother's been dead for 10 years, almost 10 years now. And it was around this time that I went to, was going to visit her and writing her every day, trying to cheer her up, trying to, let her know that I was here, that I was here. I was a part of her life. And I remember her from a time before she became the mother of two psychopaths. Because that'll change you. If you've got two psychopath sons, that'll change you. And I was like, 10 years? Honestly? 10 years have gone by? And I was really kind of surprised that it's really been 10 years. 10 years since my mother was dying. She died around Thanksgiving. But around now, she was telling us that Johns Hopkins University Hospital medical doctors misdiagnosed her and that she had been taking insulin for type 2 diabetes, injecting it into herself for almost a year or over a year before she went to a different doctor and found out she had pancreatic cancer. But by then it was so advanced. It was at stage 4 by the time they got the right diagnosis. So it was too late for a Whipple procedure that I heard about. And she probably wouldn't have even been presented with that option. I don't know. The person who told me about that option was not only European, but a Jew. So they get a different offering of medical treatment. They get group therapy instead of hospitalization, things like that. They get a clubhouse to socialize in instead of hanging around the hotel lobby. Hallways. So last night, I did not see the horrible looking man. Well, one of the horrible looking men who was lingering outside my door, who walked down the stairs while I'm talking to the delivery woman who says she used to live here 20 some years ago. And I guess it's because they knew they shot me. So, they didn't need to scare me by trying to break in my door. So today I just felt so depressed while I'm trying to, take care of the pain in my face and the new level of attack, the new little grains, the new bruise, the new deepening of my flesh, the tenderness. And I was actually missing all the women in my family. My cousin Fanny, who completely disappeared shortly after her father died in Phoenix, Arizona. I think he lived in Surprise, Arizona. My mom, who died from a misdiagnosis by John Hopkins. My cousin Michelle, who committed suicide. The daughter of Bill Reese, the medical doctor who was drafted into the Korean War to serve in Germany right out of Meharry Medical School. I was just looking at my life and thinking about how much different my life would have been had the Europeans not been after me and my Oklahoma land. If my family had not been targeted for genocide in the name of land theft, I just think that, everything would have been different in my life. Everything would have been better instead of one trauma after another. Even now, it's been one trauma after another. Into my adulthood, into my senior years, one trauma after another. And my mother's life was like that, and her mother's life was like that, but not so much. Well, I don't know. It just seems like when May D was alive and creating that legal precedent for mineral rights for landowners in Oklahoma, it seems like she just got more respect. They had not quite codified European nationalist racism and the idea of government as being an invading army of enforcement, like it was against the peasants in Europe. See, America was supposed to be different. America was supposed to be a place where the law worked for everyone, to protect everyone, and that everyone had equal rights under the law. This was how the American jurisprudence system was supposed to operate. But all we have to do is look at Alex Jones and the rich people of Newtown, Connecticut, who claim they lost their children in Sandy Hook. Me and Mr. Jones, we got a thing going on. That was a big song when I moved to Chicago. Huge. And I come from Canada, where the Who and the Beatles, even, the Beatles were kind of hanging on with that. And we were just getting into Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin in my high school, the cool kids. And I come back to America to go to Aquinas Dominican High School in Chicago, so grade 12. And me and Mrs. Jones played on the radio again and again and again, and I could not understand why. I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand why a song about infidelity was being played on the radio every half an hour. Every half an hour you had to hear that song. So even if you objected to the idea of this man singing about having a carnal relationship with another man's wife, which is unchristian, it's immoral, it's hurtful, and it encourages all the listeners to think, oh, that's all right. You know, it's him and Mrs. Jones, and it's me and, you know, my side piece. And that's okay. That's all right. You know, that might have been the start of when the radios were starting to move out of the, you know, Teddy Pendergrass, I love you arena into the me and Mrs. Jones, ain't it great to cheat? That, you know, it's a segue to rap music. But I wanted to call this segment of Exopolitical Diplomacy Me and Mr. Jones, because I think that when you compare my need for legal redress for the hurts and injustices I faced, and you compare it with the Sandy Hook Europeans who got an incredible $1.5 billion. And then we've got Donald Trump sued by a porn star for billions of dollars. I mean, $1 billion lawsuits are something new in themselves, aren't they? But $1 billion lawsuits for people, for the prosecution, for the sake of unworthy people. Well, that's a whole new level of American jurisprudence. And it's so big in front of our faces that we really have to take note that this is a giant degradation that sets the bar very low for what real Americans like me and the people in Flint, Michigan, and the people in Chicago, and the people in Atlanta, it sets the bar very low for what anybody in America can expect when it comes to justice and morality. And when you're living in an environment like this, it's hard to imagine that someplace in the world people are still living by God's laws. It becomes so hard to believe. It's like when I wake up here, it's dark. It's totally dark in here, okay? Because this was a Motel 6 that was built for the oil and gas industry workers before they automated everything and built these high rises to hide the machinery. Before they built the high rises to hide the machinery and automated so much, people used to work 3 shifts out of this hotel, transient workers. So when you're working 3 shifts, you've got to have a way to black out the room. So these rooms are incredibly dark. It also keeps energy costs for cooling down, because in Houston, Texas, it can get very, very hot. So when I wake up, it is so dark in here. It is just black in here, dark. And when I look out of the window and I see the sun, I want to weep. One, because if I go out into the sun, the concentration camp keepers and other criminals in the town will attack me and burn my face deeper and deeper and cause me pain. So I can't go out. I can't go out. And across the street where I used to walk my dog, well, as they started to make their concentration camp more formidable, they built a big black wrought iron fence around all the property. So there's no place to go to walk. There's no sidewalks in this community. They make you walk in the street if you want to walk down the block. You have to do part of it in the street. And cars are always coming by because they're watching, and they come by on schedule. They turn from Highway 10 around here when the sensors say there's somebody on the street. So even children can't go out by themselves because there's no sidewalk on part of the street. And if you try to go over on the grass where Morgan Stanley is and the Anderson Cancer Center and other corporations, well, if you're me The security guard will come out and call you by your name and say the property manager doesn't want you here. And if you say yes, but public funds built this parking lot, built this street, the black guard will say to you, I don't care. You can't be here. And if you stay here, I'm going to call the police and you're going to get trespassed. So they must tell the little kids that too, because nobody plays there. Nobody plays over there. The only people I've seen walking their dogs over there were Europeans because they don't get threatened. So I'm looking at the direction of the courts in America, being fully aware that Judge Butner in Oklahoma refuses to grant me title to my land, but put a falsified document from a European in New York named Joanne Deck, is the alias that she's using, and they put her title paper into the book, but they won't give me a title to my land in Lima, Oklahoma, where my grandfather built the town. So they are using very, very bold moves to steal the land and property of American heiresses. And the way they let Andre Martin Petty, my half-brother, get away with robbing me, I can't even believe it's been 10 years. I just can't. So I woke up feeling really depressed because they got me again. They got me again. If I hadn't been so nice talking to that woman, I wouldn't have been a target out there. They wouldn't have had time to aim and shoot and hurt my face. They wouldn't have had the time. And when she was telling me the story for the third time, it still didn't occur to me. I thought that she was just so like in awe of being back, where she had been before and comparing her life then and now. I thought she was just doing that and sharing it with me, right? But she wasn't. She was setting me up. She was setting me up. She was setting me up for the next attack on me by the criminals that are operating this concentration camp. And you want to know what's funny? My work benefits their children more than anybody else's. And they're here attacking me. My life here is very stressful. So I woke up, hurting, in pain, wondering, will I be able to beat this again? Beat it down, or is it going to just progress until my chin looks like Joe Lieberman of Connecticut? Now it'd just be horrible. It'd be so horrible, Sorry, I'm having a complex post-traumatic stress secondary to European nationalist racism zone out there, thinking about things. So today I was actually crying, I was actually crying because I was thinking about all the women in my family and how I can't be with any of them and how much I love them and miss them and feel bad, feel bad. You see, my own half-sister from a different father helped my half-brother steal my share of my inheritance from my mother. She got checks from him. She gave me $100 whole for medicine when I had cancer from my Honda Civic Hybrid with the atomic fusion engine in it that they didn't tell anyone about. You see, that would have been a worthy lawsuit, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it have been a worthy lawsuit if I had won $1.5 billion from Honda for selling me a 2015 Honda Hybrid Civic that they knew caused cancer? And I got cancer? Now that would have been great. So there've been, and then when the Arizona State Troopers kidnapped me, all you have to do is look at the paperwork, and all 3 versions of the police report should be available. But I have a list. I have at least 10 to 15 lawsuits, okay? And some of them are against entire states. like Oklahoma and Arizona. The entire state should be paying me damages for the way they damaged me. But I can't even get a lawyer to work the probate anywhere where I've got land, not in Illinois or in Oklahoma. I didn't try Michigan or Kentucky or Florida or St. Kitts, where I also have land inherited. I didn't try those other places because they made it clear to me that we're not going to represent you. When Geico refused to honor my claim that my car had been stolen, although you could look at the car and see all the rust and know it wasn't a 2020 Honda new, and I even documented it and published it on social media and tagged everybody, and I did not get anything. And when I called a lawyer, they wouldn't call back. They just had the secretary screen the call, and they didn't even talk to me. So I cannot get legal representation. I cannot get standing in a court. So how come Stormy Daniels could? And how come the Sandy Hook victims could? Now, I just have to express once again how unchristian and insane it is for parents that lost their children, one of their own kind, raised in New Hampshire, where the Europeans are even more aggressively controlling land, not too far from Exeter, of Skull and Bones feeder school. A lot of Exeter graduates go to Yale. So right out of their own community, right, they create this Adam Lansky out of their own community, right in New England, right in northeastern America. They created Adam Lansky, so they said. But they want to get revenge to the tune of 1.5 billion and drag down one of the most important real news agencies that we've got because he hurt their feelings? It didn't cost them one dime. Now, I did a little looking into the demographics of Newtown, Connecticut. I told you that Juan and I went there because Juan is I'm pretty sure Juan was CIA, you know? He showed signs of psychopathy as a child and was later institutionalized. He couldn't live with his family because he kept hurting his two brothers and one sister, and he couldn't, deal with school. So he had to go to a special school for rich psychopaths in Massachusetts, near Springfield, Massachusetts. So I'm pretty sure the CIA got a hold of him because, well, look at that movie Killing Eve, okay? Psychopaths make great hitmen. Psychopaths make wonderful killers. Psychopaths will not care if they hurt somebody. A psychopath can install a computer network that steals money from everybody's bank account in the community. A psychopath can break into everybody's house when he knows they're on vacation, and he knows because he's broken into all their computers. A psychopath doesn't have a conscience, you see? So Europeans have great use for them, great use for these people. So Juan wanted us to drive to Newtown and look around. And I'll tell you, I'm not a psychopath, so I love Juan. And Juan looked at the school, and he looked at me, and he kind of went, he was great at body language. He just kind of went like, he gave me a significant look. And you could not see any trace of trauma. You know how much Europeans love symbols? There were no yellow ribbons on the old oak trees. The school was behind a hedge. There were There were no wreaths all around the school, and this was probably within weeks or months at the most of the 2012 event, because we were there in 2012. We saw it in 2012. And he actually had to tell me, because the town was Newtown. So I didn't know Sandy Hook School was in Newtown. He had to actually tell me that's the Sandy Hook School, because you felt nothing. There were no vibrations at all. I would challenge the remote viewers to look at that scene and see if that really happened. Because here's the thing. If your child was murdered at school by one of your own people, a child that you created in your community, would you really go after a guy from Texas who said, I think you're lying, and then tries to prove it? Aren't investigative journalists supposed to try to prove it? And here's the other thing. The Sandy Hook parents put themselves on the news to try to say, oh, guns, it's the guns, it's the guns. They put themselves out there. They invited public attention. They didn't just go on about their business. They wanted to have a political movement that their event inspired and impose laws on all of us to restrict our Second Amendment rights, is what some people think. And why would they want to restrict our Second Amendment rights? Because they knew that they were going to be sending in soldiers through the southern border. And they knew that unarmed Americans are more likely to surrender, don't they? They know this. So there was a whole movement of trying to disarm Americans, but the Europeans wouldn't stand for it. They said, oh, no, you don't, right? But I don't understand many, many things. The lawsuits that I need prosecuted deal with moral law, theft, fraud, robbing a trust, not reporting the assets of a trust, not fulfilling a fiduciary duty for trusts, police abuse, court corruption. I have so many cases that are legitimate legal pursuits in a sane world. And that's why I'm wondering, when I'm here in this room and it's just dark, 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 and I look outside and I see the sun, I feel like, oh my God, there's a sun out there. But if I want to see it, I have to open my door and cover it up and put barriers on it. And if I stand out there too long, I'll get shot. I'll get attacked. They'll come after me. So I can't stay out in the sun. So while I was crying, I said, if I could be in the sun this time next year, that would be really great. I won't be able to be with my cousins or my family. But it sure would be great to be able to go outside again someday and not be shot with bioweapon, booster shot bioweapons. Well, these lawsuit settlements are the highest we've ever seen in America, and it's so we notice it. Now, are you going to be an investigative reporter when you see what happened to Alex Jones? When an rich European says, my feelings are hurt, you're going to back off, aren't you? Because you're going to say, whoa, they've got the courts in their pocket. They're as good as emperors that say, off with your head. They're royal. Now, I looked at the demographics for Newtown, and this is what I found. I found that 2/3 of the people have college degrees or greater. I found that most of them are European. and the people that are not European have a much lower rate of being married. So it's a lot of two individual homes of Europeans. And then there's some Spanish speaking people, but they're probably the help. Like the blacks are probably the chauffeurs. Maybe the maids, not so much anymore. But Newtown has some of the most expensive real estate in Connecticut, according to the demographic reports that I read. And I'm almost positive that a lot of those homes are getaway homes for the European nationalist investors from the Wall Street, New York City area. They probably have more than one home, but I couldn't find that data because that would be a public safety issue. If you knew how many homes were empty in a rich, affluent community because the family is staying in another property, then you could target them for theft. Um, and that's what a person who doesn't have access to the computer systems could do. You hear the loud music? It's hard for me to take all that loud music. I really hate living here so much. I hate living here so much. It's so scary. It's so loud. It's so ignorant. And it's got so many enemies walking around. I saw Marcus today. That's a lawsuit. That's somebody who belongs in prison or something else. That's someone that deserves to be punished. So I'm looking at Alex Jones and I'm thinking about the election. And I'm thinking, wow, Alex Jones would go a very long way towards diffusing the fake news and the violence that's predicted to happen during the political event. In fact, if Alex Jones had not been disabled by the sabotage of the legal system being thrown at him by these skull and bones elites, he might have even exposed to the people that there is no real Biden and there is no real Trump. They're avatars. They are effigies. They're representatives of their respective European nationalist political parties. Alex Jones might even have been able to do enough work to prove, once again, that the election used German machines that created conflicting results right in front of people's eyes. The news reported on it when it happened. The news told us all of the irregularities, but then they just pretended like it never happened. They just pretended like it never happened, like it just went away, and then they started using the effigies of presidents to make rules we all must obey. Now, Newtown, Connecticut has a very high percentage of extremely well-educated people, and they have a rather long commute to work. It said, 36 minutes average or something. But I think a lot of them probably work in New York City. They probably work as executives because there are, I don't know, I've been up in that area before. It's very lovely there, very European. They've taken over a lot of territory there, and it's right near the border to New York State. New York State is right near there, and there's so much theft of assets going on in New York State by the Finger Lakes and north of there. It's so depressing, it's so depressing to see the reality of what the European nationalists have done to America. I don't even know what other countries are thinking about the fact that Donald Trump was sued by a prostitute, and they tried to take all of his money from him because he said the election was fake. And yet they themselves, the media itself, gave us the proof that we should be very skeptical. But they're using the courts and these great men and these huge, outlandish settlements and these unworthy people prosecuting to give us all the message that don't question the election. And if you know the election is rigged and you want to do something about it, be prepared to go to jail. Off with their heads. That's not American. That's not like anything that Americans have been given to expect. So it's a big shock to us. So while we're in shock, we dare not question. We dare not question. We're just waiting to see what they're going to do at the next election and hoping for the best. And they said Biden's people want a war because European nationalism needs a war to keep their money flowing. Okay? Because their money is based on thin air. Okay? I create a piece of paper that says, I own you. And then another person in my group says, I'm going to pay you for that piece of paper. And then I'll own that person. And this is how they do our land. They create pieces of paper and they exchange other pieces of paper. And then they say, well, it's mine now. You don't have any papers. It doesn't matter that your ancestors have been here all this time. It doesn't matter that we won't give you any of our paper so that you can participate in our economic system. It's such a bloody trap. And we're not supposed to do anything. We're supposed to stay handcuffed through all of it. Because if we speak up like Donald Trump, we don't have Trump money. But whatever you've got, you're going to lose it, even if it's just your freedom, which is what they took from me for supporting Trump. Even if they just take your freedom from you because you're an heir and they want your land and you're supporting the president that's working for freedom for everybody. The president that gave $1 billion to the American Indians in Arizona. The president that was writing executive orders about racism to stop European nationalist racism. The president that made the HBCU financial leaders no longer have to come to Washington to beg every year. He gave them enough to begin to create endowments. Okay? So the Europeans own the economy and they don't share. And they use these pieces of paper to dispossess the heirs. And we can't get in the courts. And we can't get the probate system to work for us. But we're watching how the new legal system is going to work. It's going to work for the elites. It's going to work like the pieces of paper that they exchanged to rob me. And won't give me some of that paper. Won't give me any of the paper they're exchanging so freely. I sure hope I find my crown, because I'd hate to think that somebody broke in here and robbed me. I hope I find it soon, because I remember trying to fix it today, but I don't know. Complex post-traumatic stress secondary to European nationalist racism means that I have these huge moments during the day where I am just worried and paranoid because of the things that have happened to me, fearing other things that may have happened or might happen if I'm not vigilant about protecting myself and my property. and controlling my temper, so I don't get triggered and act out too much and put myself in danger like that. So what they've done with Donald Trump, okay, what they've done with the January 6th European Americans. We saw the guy in the buffalo costume, the Italian guy. We saw him walking through the White House. Tucker Carlson showed us even once he became woke. And I use woke in the Tom Joyner way. That means aware of the way European nationalist racism is controlling the reality of America through politics, law, and the executive branch, through the government they've installed and wrapped around us. So here we have the January 6th people being made an example of by the courts. And the courts are the decision makers. The judges are the highest powers in our land. And it used to be that we thought of judges as the most fair people, the most compassionate people, the most intelligent people that are able to see two sides of an issue and make the right decision. Like Solomon, when he says, okay, you say this baby's yours, you say this baby's yours, let's find out. I'll cut the baby in half and give you each half the baby. And the woman who's the imposter says, fine with me, do it. But the real mother says, oh no, please, that will kill my baby. Just let her have the baby. Don't kill the baby. And then you know who's telling the truth and who's lying. That was what we thought a judge was. We thought a judge was the most high voice of justice, the most honorable integrity. And yet, only the Black Supreme Court judge is being dragged across the coals, right? They didn't drag Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her people first across the coals, did they? But I heard on Real Raw News that she was executed. That's what I heard, for being anti-American. And I mean, I see on Real Raw News a lot of these crooked politicians are being handled at Gitmo. And we used to hear so much about Gitmo, but we don't hear it anymore. We don't hear it anymore. And this abuse of law is still going forward. Okay? Joe Biden is giving fiat cash to the Europeans fighting their war. But they're all Europeans fighting. I saw today a news report that Israel got back the 7 hostages, and they murdered 150 Arabs. So look, what kind of ratio is that? That's saying that 4 of our people are worth 150 of your people and more, because they supposedly made many strikes upon the Arab people on behalf of these hostages. That ain't right. That ain't right. Not in America, not with American money, not with American funding, not with American lives. That ain't right. Because here, the life of a Hamas is equal to the life of an Israeli. But they've created an economic system that deprives us of our wealth, and a court system that justifies the genocide and theft. I can't prosecute the corporations that gave me cancer, the corporations that made my rent go so high. I went to Phoenix with a 720 credit rating, and I left in the 400s or 500s. I left ruined. 2 years, 2016, 2017, 2018. 6 years, maybe. No, I'm sorry, maybe 3 years to go from the best credit rating, 720, to scraping the bottom of the barrel. Because of things like Cox. Cox wouldn't let me out of the contract for the computer. And they wouldn't let me have the password to my network. So they were in my network all the time. When I called them up, I said, hey, I want to lock my router. Can you give me the password? The ignoramus that worked for Cox in the technical department, he had no idea what I was talking about. And because utilities employees are known for being lazy, because there's no progress, he didn't even want to learn about it or find out about it. And I called many times, and always the same. They didn't care. They weren't going to give me control so I could lock up my network as best as I could. And the network password's wide open. That ain't right. They should be prosecuted in court, but they know that they won't. Just like when Juan Luis moved into my house and he said, you can go on and call the police, but you'll be the one in trouble. If anybody gets arrested, it'll be you. And I knew he was telling me the truth. But more importantly, I knew that if they didn't arrest him, he was going to keep breaking into my house. He'd already broken the garage door down when I locked him out. He'd already hidden in the roof after he got in the garage and dropped fluids into the rooms through the ceiling vents. So I knew that if I locked him out, he was going to come back and get revenge. So here we have the January 6th people being taken to court. They say they put them in prison. I don't know if that's true or not. I find it so hard to believe that the January 6th people are called insurrectionists. When they were fighting for America, they were fighting for truth and honor and the American way. They were fighting because they knew that those German tabulating machines were filled with malware that was converting Trump votes into Biden votes. They knew there was cheating and they knew how it was done. But they suppressed it because they control everything. They control it all. And it's so corrupt. I just wonder, is the whole world like this? Like when my room is dark and it's bright outside, is it bright somewhere in the world? Are things right somewhere in the world? Or are all of the people in the world caught up in this horrible ugliness? You know, I looked on Before It's News, and the Europeans are saying anti-white prejudice is increasing. And then I heard one of them say, you know, a black person can have a D in college and still get into medical school because of affirmative action. Wow. The Europeans don't even understand racism. For one, racism comes with a power dynamic. You cannot be the victim of racism and a racist at the same time, because you react to racism. Okay, when you react to racism, it doesn't make you a racist. It makes you reacting to racism. Makes you smart, makes you intelligent, makes you value your life, prove that you value your life. So they don't even understand it, but more importantly, they're not trying to address it in a responsible way. They're trying to blame us for hating them, right? It's like anti-Semitism. You want me to love you when you're killing the Arabs? And if I say you're killing the Arabs and that's immoral and that's wrong, I'm anti-Semitic? Then so be it. Then let me be anti-Semitic because you're wrong and you're immoral and you're murdering and genociding and you're stealing and you're cheating and you're using the courts to prosecute good people and to send a message to all of us that it's a new game now. They're sending the message to every single one of us. New game in play. You say that the proof indicates something that the elite Europeans don't like, and you will find yourself in a concentration camp if you've already been robbed or facing the courts and fighting for your life. Now, for Donald Trump, a president who did so many great things, closed the border, put a halt on all that slavery in Arizona that was coming through the border, and all the European corporations were using the South American migrant workers as a slave workforce. I even saw it in New York State. Okay, so those Hispanics in Newtown, Connecticut might well have been part of the immigration of slaves into America from South America and Mexico. And Donald put an end to that, didn't he? And what was his reward? I'm sorry, but Stormy Daniels was a porn star. I remember in rape cases, if the girl had a stain on her reputation, if she had a reputation for being promiscuous, or the defense attorney could prove it, and there were even movies about it with Sandra Dee, even movies about how a good girl could be ruined if she prosecuted for rape. So what did that movie do? It made girls be quiet about rape because they didn't want to be disgraced in the court. So we've seen the court work to protect powers in the patriarchy, powers in the European nationalist society. We've seen it work time and time and time again. But look at what it's doing now. It's absolutely outrageous. Because first, the January 6th protesters, who are as heroic as the Revolutionary War Boston Tea Party people and not nearly as violent. Alex Jones was one of the people who proved that Antifa activists were a part of the January 6th, making it seem like an insurrection when Trump had advocated for peace, but he was undermined by his enemies. And then the fake news runs with it. The courts run with it. They make that the narrative. And they say to all the rest of us, yeah, we cheated. What you gonna do about it? Huh? Because if you do about it, we're gonna throw you under the jail. And that was the message to all of us. So we're gonna shut up and just let Biden do his thing. We're not going to say anything because we're just individuals. We don't have a political organization. We don't have European cash and money. We don't have places to hide. We're out here naked, unprotected, and not united. So they could just pick us off like flies. And that's what January 6th taught the public, that you better leave Biden alone or you're going to be a January 6er. And you better just pretend like he was elected, or you'll find yourself in prison for insurrection. But that's not enough, right? They have to make sure that Donald Trump is rendered completely impotent, that he can't do anything for America. So first they create the avatar, and the avatar says, take the vaccine. So all of the people who know better look at him like, what the fuck? Unless you already knew that Kofifi was the end of Donald Trump. If you knew that, then you knew that this new guy was just working the agenda. Just working the agenda. That was his position. That was his job. He's just a mouthpiece. Controlled opposition. So then they bring up the Stormy Daniels case again, right? And our children have to know that a porn star is being granted the privilege of being represented in court when I can't be. Okay? When legitimate victims cannot be represented in court. Do you know how long ago the abuse of me by one powerful entity after another, how much it would have stopped if I had just gotten represented once along the way? If just once someone had taken up my cause, somebody, with the power to prosecute in court, but they didn't, because they're letting porn stars drag down a president. okay? And then try to take away all his property. You know how hard it would be to sleep if he were here, if he was actually going through this, and knowing that he's the real president, knowing that he was duly elected, if such a thing can happen with an electoral college, knowing he was duly elected by the popular vote, but he can't take the seat of power. And now they're going to drag him through the court and disgrace him and talk about him under his clothes. I mean, just to protect the public from the smarminess of it would have been a good enough motive for me. But then I remember that we have different morality, okay? Christians, Muslims, Buddhists have very different morality from the people that have seized the power. So when we see Donald Trump being dragged down like that, we feel like, well wow, they're going to take all his money. They're going to ruin him. How can he be the president? We can't have this man as a president. He's been convicted of a felony charge brought upon him by a blackmailing porn star prostitute from an era of more sexual promiscuity, an era when more guys were trying to come off like Austin Powers, man of the world, right? But they don't take that into account. And then the icing on the cake, Alex Jones, the one that finds them out. And right at the most crucial moment, when we're trying to determine who the real elected president is, the Europeans in Connecticut, not too far from Harvard, Yale, and Dartmouth, not too far from the initiation site of Skull and Bones, they decide that their feelings are hurt and that they're going to financially ruin Alex Jones and completely silence and censor him and have him so distracted by his personal trauma that he can't work for us. Okay? One of the first things I noticed when I left Twitter and I got attacked, and Marcus Smith, came in my room crying like a little bitch so that I would be distracted while he spread nanobots on my bed. And then for the next few months, I can't do my social media exposés. I can't do my social media education because I'm consumed with my health. I'm in pain. I'm in horror. And I'm consumed with getting better. I'm consumed with my health. I can't work. There's nothing left of me. There's so little left of me to work because I'm consumed. Isn't that what they're doing to Alex Jones? Alex Jones is our best bet for finding out about the upcoming election, about the truth, about the instigators that they're planting, about the false flags that they want to provoke. Alex Jones was the most effective truth teller of all of them. Okay? No one held a candle to Alex Jones, and that's why they went after him. That's why they want InfoWars. They want to destroy InfoWars. It's an act of war. It's a European nationalist act of war against a European American patriot. Okay? And when the Europeans talk about the Civil War, that's the Civil War that they're talking about. They're not talking about a race war because look, we're all beaten. Okay? I'm one of the strongest men on my team, and I'm in a concentration camp being prosecuted by the people I'm trying to rescue. The irony in that, right? And they don't even know. They should be treating me like a hero, bringing me fresh fruits every day, carrying me around on their shoulders. But they're too ignorant. They're just too ignorant. And they're working for the man. They're working for the United States of America, Military. That's who their employers are. That's why they all know each other and they're all talking to each other and plotting and scheming like that. So I'm seeing the judicial system being used to silence resistance to the takeover of America by the corporations. They want to charge you for water. They want to occupy your air with star links that are constantly monitoring your conversation. They want to control your mind and train you for whatever the next thing they want human beings to do. So as I wake up to the blackness of my room. I look outside, I see the sunshine and feel wistful and desperate inside. And then I'm thinking about all of the people in my family that have been lost to European nationalist racism trauma, and how many economic opportunities have been stolen from me, and how deformed they've made my life. And I felt very sad indeed. And then I said, okay, now let's say that you got your inheritance. Let's say you finished at Yale, even. You could even go back there, or you can even go all the way back to when Sheldon L. Epstein stole your intellectual property and ruined your chances to go to law school and become a corporate lawyer. If you'd become a corporate lawyer, who would you be today? Would you be any safer? Would you be any different politically? Well, I cannot say. I probably would have spent my time being elite, so I would not feel the pain of being on the ground, you see. I probably would have vacation homes in other countries, and I could just go there when things got too ugly here. I might even retire there on a compound because I would have been making big money as a corporate lawyer. Or the Europeans might have found a way to drag me down. I might have risen to a certain point, and then just when I'm at the pinnacle of success, they could have shot me down. Deliberateness, with absolute deliberateness. Because just because Sheldon didn't get me didn't mean that the next guy down the line wouldn't get me. And I know that from Charlotte Meltzer, Jim Rowe, the guy at AT&T that violated my privacy by telling Illinois Bell that I was trying to get a job with AT&T on Unix. And it just goes on and on and on. Then Yale University, Hazel Carby, Henry Louis Gates, the Ford Foundation, Valerie Smith, Brent Hayes Edwards. My enemies are just never ending enemies. And I wouldn't even be here if I didn't have so much help. Hidden hands of help. Now, I think God has a plan for all of our lives. And if I had succeeded as a Yale graduate student, I would just be an obscure professor out there somewhere with lots of books that I worked my guts out to write so I could get tenure. I would have gone on a million little lecture tours, but I wouldn't be anybody. I would still be a big nobody like all the other guys that did make it through, if there were any at Yale coming through the departments that I was trying to come through, American culture. I wouldn't be anybody special. I wouldn't have a better voice than the voice I've got right now. And if I'd gotten my inheritance, can you imagine how many people would have taken advantage of me by now? I mean, I didn't have any money and GoDaddy robbed me. I didn't have any money and Cox Communications made sure that my router was insecure. So when I'm trying to publish my book, I have to spend 10 times longer to do it because they keep changing my copy and sabotaging my work. And I wouldn't have been able to stop theft of my properties by the courts. In fact, if I'd gotten my inheritance, I surely would have been sued by now for some of my broadcasts. But people know that I have got nothing. You get nothing from me but my life in a concentration camp and my time as a bioweapons test dummy. Data on the effects of bioweapons. That's pretty much all I'm good for, the way they've got me now. I don't know how this can turn around, but I do know this. If God had not given me this life and shown me everything that I've seen of the corruption from the European nationalists, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have any idea. If I wasn't living with all these bad people in this hotel, these computer hackers that hack off the highway, these people that hurt me, these people that try to break into my little room, if I had been able to avoid all this, if I had been able to keep myself in the elite air and space, I wouldn't be able to fight. I'd be a victim, but I wouldn't know how to protect myself. I wouldn't understand the way it works, but I understand the way it works. If I hadn't been kidnapped by the Arizona State Troopers, if I had not been tricked by Judge Butner in Oklahoma, if I had not been dragged through Tina Ainley's Arizona Superior Court, if I had never met Sue Ann Dicker, I would have absolutely no way to connect with what's happening in America. I would be in an ivory tower of privilege. I would be having my home and everything would function according to my routine, and I would have no idea what was going on out here. None whatsoever. Because that's how it was before I had to leave my home, before Juan Luis drove me out here, before I got to see Roger be able to hit me with a stick and give me a concussion and the police just laugh and do nothing. You couldn't have told me. I couldn't have read a book about it and believed it. It's something you just have to see for yourself. You have to live through it for yourself, because that changes you. That lets you see, that lets you get in there, and that makes you more effective. So as I'm talking to you, good ETs, time travelers, future anthropologists, as I'm talking to you, I'm telling you what I've seen and what I'm seeing. And I know that the people in my level of existence can't do anything to change or protect ourselves. The courts are higher than us. The police have weapons. The thugs, they've got a mission. The military in this concentration camp, they've got their orders. And they enjoy fulfilling their orders. So you are really our only hope. You really are. Don't you see? You're our only hope. And while a hot war might mean fireworks, it's a hot war right here. It's a hot war between ideologies, between the powerful and the powerless, between good and evil. It's a war right here. I'm so glad you came to help. I really am glad you came to help. And please don't forget that they re-attacked me. So I'm going to need more of your wonderful treatment. And I hope that you've seen the other people that are also being victims of this bioweaponry, because I'm seeing them. I see the effects. I know the effects when I see them. And I know they've got to be glad that I'm speaking up and describing it so that you can actually create the medical treatments to heal us from these flesh-eating infections, these things in our ears, these things in our gums, in our teeth, in our blood that our enemies have deployed upon us. Well, I see that nobody joined me live this time. So maybe, I don't know, I got lucky once and got a crowd in here, because I was really hoping for people to tell me, what do you think about the Alex Jones verdict? Do you think that the hurt feelings of the Newtown Europeans who have an average home income around $200,000, who have mostly gone to college and graduate school, who are living in the most expensive homes in America, some of the most expensive homes in America, they said, or at least in Connecticut, are there in Newtown. And somebody says, hey, we don't believe you. And rather than say, well, look at these bodies. Well, look at the school. Look at the bullets in the walls. No, they say, how dare you not believe us? We said it, so it's true. How dare you? We're going to prosecute you. I'm going to call my cousin Jim because he's a judge and he's going to beat your butt. And that's exactly what happened. So are we going to continue to live in a country where the elite get to pull out law enforcement and the judiciary to silence the people empowering opposition to them? Alex was empowering the people. Alex was trying to help us liberate ourselves from the prison planet. Alex was reminding us that free will needs education, that free will cannot make good decisions when it lives in ignorance. And he was educating us. He was teaching us. And now they've taken our hero and they've tied him to a truck with chains, and they've dragged him down a stony road filled with broken glass. They've broken his legs, and now they're cutting out his tongue. They're lynching Alex Jones. They're lynching him. And you're just watching. You're just sitting there watching, because you don't want to go to jail like the January 6 people, do you? And you don't want them to take you to court with a prostitute, do you? And you don't want them to ruin your InfoWars, if you got one, your small business. You don't want your boss to get mad at you. There's so many ways that you're afraid to stand up for yourself, that you'd rather just go down with the ship and hope you can hang on to a piece of wood. But you're on the Titanic, baby. You're on the Titanic. And there's no rescue boats around here. So you're going to be going down with the ship. And right now I'm addressing the people in America that are just spectators to their own death and defeat. So I'm sure that we win. I know we win. Everybody knows we win, but we don't win until you get off your ass and do something. And I don't mean put yourself in danger in any kind of way. I mean, tweet. Tweet what you think. Do a YouTube. Not as long as this one. This one's way too long. I mean, I always have to worry when I'm going to watch a YouTube that lasts this long, because I have to say, do I have enough time for this? Okay. Last point. I saw a movie with Ben Affleck on Netflix. And I'll tell you, if I was going to buy stock and Netflix was a little cheaper, I will buy Netflix, because Netflix has such good movies. Wow, so good. And this movie has Ben Affleck as an autistic person. And it was really good. It was really good. But there was another movie that was even better than that with Janelle Monáe in it. Oh my goodness. It was called Knives Out. Knives Out. Ed Norton was in it too. And Janelle Monáe blew the lid off of it. What a phenomenal actress. She did a superb job. I mean, that's an award-winning performance by Janelle Monáe, who's known as a musician and a beautiful lesbian, if I'm not mistaken. The gorgeous lesbian. She sure did look pretty, too. She was gorgeous. Wow, she was pretty. And her performance was great. And the movie was great. It was a great movie. I mean, I got goosebumps. I've got goosebumps because that movie made me feel good at the end. It really made me feel good at the end. And that was a blessing because my face was hurting. Because I trusted that woman who wanted to talk to me. And all she wanted to do was keep me outside long enough to get hit again. So I can't even trust people to be nice and conversational and normal. I have to fear them all in this place, this concentration camp. I also have noticed that people are acknowledging that there is a concentration camp, so I can see that people have been listening to me and they have vetted my story and they have done the research and they know that I'm not lying when I say that this is a concentration camp and that they're using bioweapons. And you can see the proof on me. You can see the proof on other people once you learn how to recognize it. But if we let Alex Jones go down with this, and we let Alex Jones be silenced, then we need to see that as a very serious defeat for free speech and truth in America. A very big defeat. Stand up for Alex. Fight for your freedom. Protect Alex Jones. Don't let them destroy his organizations and his right to be the best investigative journalist in the country.